I think the best way to make the world a better place, to make your wife happier, to get your children to do what you tell them to do, is to be generous. I also think one of the best ways to make money is to be generous. When you go somewhere and they seat you quickly and you're surprised by that, it's a form of generosity. I was at a restaurant. We don't have them around here. Maybe we will someday. I won't name them because I'm sad they're not here in our state. But I was there visiting some friends, and one of the customers walked by the trash can and dumped their tray, and it was a teenager. And he looked up right when he dumped it and looked at his mom and said, "Mom, I dumped your fries." And she wanted to take, I think they were in a to-go container. There was an employee just that moment who walking past and said, and heard the exchange, said, "Let me go get you more fries." Now those fries cost that restaurant approximately 2 cents, right? But the generosity that was built into that, those people are coming back. I'm coming back. I have been the recipient of a lot of generosity. And generosity is wonderful. But because I love my wife, I won't get into the details of this, but we have 3 children. And there's a joke in there somewhere, but maybe on the replay you'll get it. Trying to keep it modest and clean. But we have children to feed, and so I would love to be generous and buy everyone coffee. I'm not going to, because we have a roof to put over our head, and I'll get to the roof later. But in the last year of my business, my income has approximately doubled. So this is where I sound like the capitalist who wants to make a lot of money, because I'm the capitalist who wants to make a lot of money, and then tithe like I should. So here's the story. About 5 years ago, I quit a job I didn't like very much at all, and I started my own business. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had $1,000 in the bank. I had one client, but my wife believed in me a lot. I had read this book by a guy named Dan Miller called 48 Days to the Work You Love. Well, I'm not very patient, so about 20 days into the book, I quit my job. And I really didn't know what I was doing. We had a brand new child, my son who's just turning 6, but I was going to go find that work that I love. And I think books are generous because there's authors who spend so many hours and they put it in something and say, it's $15, right? And I think that's so generous that Dan did that. And so I started to work for myself. And one of the ways you can really learn is things like YouTube and podcasts. A lot of people listen to podcasts on iTunes. And so I wanted to start a podcast, so I looked for help, and I found this guy, the Podcast Answer Man. His name's Cliff Ravenscraft. Many of you have no idea who he is, but millions of people do. And he's in Kentucky. And I reached out to Cliff just to thank him and say, "Cliff, I was trying to do a podcast. I bought Podcasting for Dummies book, and I ended up sounding just like a dummy after even reading the whole book." And in our first conversation, Cliff was like, "We have a lot in common, and thank you for the compliments, by the way." He said, "Do you want to do a podcast with me?" And I said, "Well, that would be great." I didn't know how big of a deal that was. But at the time, Cliff had hundreds of thousands of listeners. And so when he said, "I'm starting a new show," all these people would come and listen. And he just said, "Hey, Andy, just come do a show with me." I said, "Okay." So we did this thing called Business Tech Weekly. Basically, geeks talking about geeky things every week. Like all the cool stuff in Gmail. It was like 5 episodes, My wife's like, "I don't want to know, I don't want to listen, just and I said, "Just take," because I'm in the basement of our house doing this thing, and all these people are listening. So Cliff generously let me borrow his platform. And so as things go forward, I was like, I'm really kind of getting good at this podcasting thing. I wonder if I can make money doing it. And I sort of hatched this idea. I didn't know anyone who was working with authors, published authors, working with a publisher that had a big platform, but wanted to get their book ideas out there and tell their stories through podcasts. So I thought, I'm going to approach a publisher, because they're the ones with the money, and they want to sell more books. And I said, let me go to a publisher and say, "Hey, I'm going to work with some of your authors, and we're going to create this marketing channel." But I only knew one author, Dan Miller, who wrote that book. And over the years of starting my business, I'd reach out to him and said, "Dan, thanks for writing that book. I went through it really fast, and it didn't take 48 days. But I'm still feeding my kids thanks to your great advice." And so, I do favors for him. He never paid me for anything. I wish he would sometimes, but I was trying to be generous, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm cashing in on my generosity. I called Dan and said, Dan, so your publisher, Thomas Nelson, like, I need a foot in the door. I said, no problem, Andy. So he sends an email and says, I got this guy doing these great podcasts, hundreds of thousands of listeners, which it wasn't even my audience, it was Cliff's audience, right? He didn't say that part. And he said, sure, I'll get you a foot in the door. So this guy returns my call, and I get this meeting with Thomas Nelson. I go down to Tennessee, and I meet with them, and they say, we will absolutely not pay you to do that. And that's my talk. No, I'm kidding. Worst TED Talk ever. No, they're like, we will not pay you to do that, but we have an author who's really picky. And it's like, this is great, thank you. But his name is Andy Andrews, and here's Andy Andrews. He's a phenomenal speaker. And they said, well, he's one of our best authors. So it's like, well, what does that mean? So, Wikipedia. The guy sold 3.5 million books, and they like want me to work with him. But they're like, oh yeah, by the way, like 99.9% of the time, whatever we bring to him, they don't do, because they got enough good stuff going on. But I get on the phone with his manager, and his name is Robert D. Smith. They call him the Robert D. And this man's like a force of nature. I mean, he's amazing, amazing, dynamic person. His whole career, he has managed Andy Andrews. That's his whole job, his whole life, is managing this one person. And they say no to everything. I got him on the phone, and we're talking about the deal. And they finally go, okay, AT, because they can't call me Andy because we're both Andy and it's confusing. And I have to get the little simple name because I'm not the star, Andy Andrews is. So I'm AT. He says, okay, AT, how much is this going to cost? And again, my whole talk is about making money. So let's get into, some dollars and cents. And I say, it's going to be free. And Robert D. says, now I'm a capitalist and I know how to do math. That's not going to work for you. Like, you're not good at business, AT. I said, you know what? I think it is good for business because I believe in generosity and reciprocity, which means if you give enough, it'll come back. You don't know how, you don't know when, but it'll come back. And he says, and I have to censor this because I'm a Christian and I don't know if you're allowed to say this on TEDx, but he says, Andy, I'm going to promote the blank out of you, okay? He didn't say blank. And I was like, okay, sweet, let's do this thing. So for like 1.5 years, I did the show and I made nada. But I got to talk to Andy and I got to be part of this big brand. Millions of people got to hear my voice because I was trying to be generous, right? So one of the shows, we were talking about content in this book, and it's called Mastering the 7 Decisions, because I'm trying to go through Andy's content and come up with ideas for show topics. And on page 68, there's this little section about early to rise, and it's this 30-day challenge to get up early for 30 days. So I go to Robert D. and David, one of Andy's managers, and I say, I got this idea. We should have an episode about this, and then we should create 30 emails, and then people can sign up, and then for 30 days, we'll give them an email every morning at like 3 a.m. So when they wake up, they can read it. It'll encourage them to wake up early. It'll sell more of the book because it's a great book. It'll get people early. It'll change their lives. It'll be great. And they said, Andy, that's awesome. We don't want to do any of that work. You do it. I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I did it. I made 30 emails, and we had like 500 people sign up in like the first week. I was like, well, this is great. Changing lives, people emailing us saying that's great. Andy Andrews, thanks for all that great work you do. And I was like, I did all the work. But anyway, it's changed people's lives, so yeah, good, okay? Right? Andy gets all the credit. That's fine. So fast forward a couple more months, I start working with another friend named Jeff Goins, and he's paying me to host some calls and some podcasts, things like that. He's got this community called Traub writers. So he teaches you how to write a book and get it in front of people. And I'm like, well, this is cool, but like, I don't want to sit down and like write a book. So how can I like write a book without writing a book? And I think I've got these 30 emails. I could just kind of stretch them out. So I went back to Andy Andrews and I said, hey, can I use that idea in your book and like make it into a book and then sell it? And after all those free shows, they said, yes. And I was like, thank you, finally making some money off you people. So this is what I did. With Jeff's help, with Andy's help, with all these other people's help, with Dan's help, I published a book. And when people go like, it's not a real book because it's it's like it's an e-book. If you make an album and you download it from iTunes, is it a real album? Yes. So it's a real book, okay? All right, it's also available in print now, okay? Amazon. But, so I made the book, but I was like, here's the thing. I think the way that they sell books is stupid and cheap and it rips you off. Because right now, you can go buy the same book, Kindle, $8, print, $12, audio edition, $18. I'm like, no book is that good that I'm going to pay 3 times for it. So I was like, forget it. I'm self-publishing. When you buy the book, you do get the edition. You also get the audio edition. And for 30 days, because it's about getting up early, I'm going to email you every morning. And there's also a link in there. You can listen to me talk if you're too tired in the morning to read. You can just hit play. And people are loving this thing. It's selling really well. But I need to get out in front of more people. And Jeff Goins says, you got to guest post. So I guest posted on one guy's blog, Killer Tribes. I don't know what's with tribes things all over the place. So Jeff Goins, who runs Tribe Writers, connects with Brian Elaine, who has Killer Tribes. This other guy named Chris Licurdo. And I just do 2 little guest posts on these guys' blogs. Guess what? They have tens of thousands of readers. And again, does anybody remember like any point where I say I have tens of thousands or millions of anything? No, I'm just piggybacking on all these awesome people. It's great. I highly suggest it. So in comes, so these people generously let me borrow their platform. In comes this lady who reaches out to me and she says, Andy, her name's Crystal Payne. She's a mommy blogger. I don't know who she is, because obviously, I'm married to a mom, I have a mom, but that's my limitation of understanding moms. And she says, Andy, I love what you're doing with your book. My husband loves Chris Licurdo's blog and Brian Elaine's blog. You're everywhere. I'm like, I guess posted on 2 blogs and there's like 10 billion. But yeah, I'm everywhere, Crystal. She said, I want to talk to you about what you're doing with your book. It's really cool. I said, sure. So we talked on the phone. I'm like, this is a really neat lady. And somebody says, do you know who she is? I said, yeah, she's a mommy blogger. They're like, dude, she gets like 1.5 million hits a month. And by the way, I did the math. That's actually 1,000 times as many as I got on my own website. She's a big deal. She's like, can I feature your book for 30 days on my blog? I'm like, yeah. The woman literally put a roof on my house. Like, I did the math. Like, so this is a spreadsheet. You can't read it. But here's the idea. I started tracking. Crystal made me around $7,000. You know how much my roof cost? $6,500. Like, she literally put a roof over my head. I told her that. So we start selling a bunch of copies, and we get debt-free. So we get to call this guy Dave Ramsey, who hates credit cards. And I call Dave Ramsey, and I'm like, Dave, we're debt-free. But I also say to him, hey, I'm debt-free in part because of the generosity of this person and Dan Miller. How do you know Dan Miller? And I'm like, well, I bought his book a long time ago and read half of it and quit my job. And it's a long story, but we're out of debt. We're selling all this money on these ebooks because I'm so awesome. Not because I know great people, right? So in the midst of that, some more generosity, there's this other guy that used to work for him named John Acuff, and he wrote this great book called Start, and another one called Quitter. Very encouraging, awesome books. But it was the same week that John's new book was coming out. So I timed it with them to promote John's book. So John calls me, and he's like, dude, thanks so much for promoting my book. I'm like, well, Dave's got a couple of listeners. 3.5 million. I know a lot of awesome people. So John is helping, Dave is helping, all these people are helping. I'm selling lots and lots of books. So I become better friends with this Chris Licurdo guy who helped me guest post that one time. He says, Andy, you're missing it. You gotta maximize this. You gotta make it into chicken soup for the series, but get up early thing. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, didn't you tell me mostly women buy your book? I said, yeah. He goes, you write a book for women. I'm like, there's a problem. I'm a man. I don't understand the one woman I married. How am I supposed to write a book for all these women? But I realized part of getting the bonuses of my book, you had to give me your email address. So I had 1,200 email addresses. So I sent out one email to 1,200 people on the list, and about 80% of them were women. And I said, would you write one day of this challenge, this 30-day challenge book? And a bunch of them said, I'd be honored. I'd love to. Your book helped me so much. I love the emails. I love the audio. I love how generous you were. And I'm like, you all paid for the book, right? And they're like, yeah, but it was just very generous. I'm like, hey, I like that. You pay me money and you thank me? Life is good. So the next book that's coming out is Early to Rise for Moms, written by moms. But we couldn't do 30 days. There's 77 because so many moms wrote days. And again, I look like the laziest guy in the world here because I wrote this much and all these moms wrote all this stuff because they were grateful because I was generous. Now, I'm donating some of the money from the book to teen moms. I'll tithe it to my church and things like that. But I'll never be able to repay the generosity of all the people that got me here. Here's the beautiful thing. I live in a state that people don't have to put my phone number and write like the name on it when I call, because I'm the only guy on their phone that says South Dakota. Anybody else have that? Like they're like, oh, I don't even put your name on my phone. You're the only guy that calls from South Dakota. Like, not a lot of people live here. But if you're generous, you can reach a lot of people. And frankly, I think you can make a lot of money. And so if you're struggling in your marriage, if you're struggling in your relationships, you're struggling in business, at work, my boss doesn't appreciate me, the people I work with don't appreciate me, I would encourage you to consider, instead of asking and wanting more, to be more generous. Now, the most generous person in this whole equation is my wife. Because what I didn't tell you was that 5 years ago when I quit my job, is she was very generous in that she believed in me. Because frankly, when I look at it and I look at the math, she shouldn't have. She very generously said, honey, I believe in you and you're going to do this. And she probably went and said, I have no idea how I was going to do this, Lord, but please help us. We have a child to feed. I think that generosity wins because it's a win-win. So what if someone takes advantage of your generosity? It doesn't matter, right? You are the giver. That's up to them. So I think if you want to win in life, and that includes better relationships, and for me in the last year it's meant a lot more money, then I think that you should try to be generous. Thanks.